Bonjour tout le monde. Hello, good morning. So it's time for our weekly assembly again, and it's lovely to have us all together sharing the assembly. But before we do that, I just want to share with you just a page on our blog where you can access all our previous assemblies, and also where you can look at the assemblies that are coming up for this week, so you can get prepared. So if we go to our school website, and we've got our school website open here, as you can see, if you go onto the Learning at Home tab and scroll down to School Blogs and click on School Blogs, it will open a tab that will take you to our school blogs. So here we go, and here are all our school blogs. So your class blogs are there, and that's where you find all your learning for the week. But if you go onto the team blogs and you go onto the Shine team blog, here we go, and this opens, what you will find on our Shine team blog are all our assemblies from this term. And actually, if you go onto previous pages, you can find previous terms assemblies as well. So here we are, here's our theme for this term, and there's our beautiful Shine team, all the members of our Shine team when we're back in school. Those are the children that help us with assemblies and help put comments on the blog, and just help us with all our assemblies in the week. And then here are the assemblies that are coming up for this week. Now we've got a Rock Kids assembly coming up this week. That's going to be good. And Rock Kids have also got a competition running, so you can look at the competition there. Design your own guitar, and entry details there. And then each week we also do a picture news assembly. Now the picture news assembly this week is all about the elections over in America and what's been happening over there, about democracy and how we hold votes to allow people to make a choice. Is that a good or a bad idea? And then there's a worksheet there that you can print off and write some answers in there and send it in. Reception in year 1, you also have a wiggle worship, so your wiggle worship is on there. And then scrolling down, we've got our assemblies from last week. So there's my assembly from last week, picture news from last week, there we go, wiggle worship from last week, and then my previous assembly from the week before, another picture news and another picture news. So all our assemblies can be found on the Shine team blog. So remember, if you go to the school website, go to the blogs, go to the team blogs, Shine team, that will take you to this page, and that's where you can find all our previous assemblies. And if I ever ask you to make a comment on one of the assemblies, the best way to do that, or the best way to interact with me or to respond to me, is underneath the assembly. So if we just scroll to last week's, here we are, you can see that there are 5 comments. 5 people have commented on this assembly. So if you wanted to add a comment, all you would need to do is click onto the assembly, and at the bottom you'll get the option to look at the comments and add a comment. It's nice to have a comment there from Bethany and Mrs. Buckley and Mrs. Cowell, and I know that was from Casey and Reception Green and Miss Brown. And if you want to leave a comment, all you need to do is type into there, and then you get the option to post a comment, and that comment would come straight through to me. So let's make use of this. If I ask you some questions, or if I ask you to make a comment on anything or respond to me, all you need to do is click on the post and add a comment, and I hope to see more of that. So now you know where to find all last time's assemblies. Let's start now to look at the assembly for this week. So over to our assembly for this week, and you'll remember that our theme at the moment is Let Your Light Shine So Brightly That Others Can See Their Way Out of the Dark. And we've been talking about having a positive attitude, being the one that other people look to for their inspiration, being the one that is the role model in the world, being the one that chooses the right thing to do so that other people will copy you and come out of their dark place and into your light. So a lot of the children started to talk to me about this, the children that are in school. and it's lovely to see, and it's lovely to see some of you making comments on the blog, because our theme, our whole school theme is learn, sparkle and shine. It's what we ask you to do all the time, so the fact that we're thinking about that particular this time is very pertinent. So let your light shine so brightly that others can see their way out of the dark. And you remember last week we talked about which one of these are you. The same image, the same thing that your eyes see as what somebody else's eyes see. Exactly the same information going into your brain. But when that information reaches your brain, which are you? Do you see a glass that's half full? Or do you see a glass that's half empty? Which one do you see? Because it's exactly the same stimulus. It's exactly the same thing that's happening out there in the world. It's a glass of water. But is it a half full glass of water, or is it a half empty glass of water to you? And that's an indication of your mindset. Do you think positively about things, or do you think negatively about things? Do you see the worst in things, or do you see the best in things? Whatever that situation is, how do you interpret it? What do you think about it? And our theme at the moment is asking us to think about being half full. Looking at the positives, counting our blessings. And one of the things I asked you to do last week was research or look into a gentleman called Henry Fraser. Henry Fraser paints with his mouth, but he was made to do that, or he basically was forced into that situation because of an accident that happened to him. He was on the beach and he jumped into the water and his head bumped on a sand dune, and from that moment on he was paralysed. And I'm just going to show you a small video, it doesn't last very long, but a little video of Henry Fraser himself talking about what happened and how his mindset was changed so he could think about the positives.
Drawing and painting is something a lot of people just don't believe they can do. A lot of people were just kind of shocked I was able to do it, and do it quite well just by using my mouth. In July 2009, I was on holiday with a group of mates, and I just ran down the beach, ran into the sea, and just dived. As I had done earlier that day, as I've done pretty much my whole life whenever I visited the beach, I completely misjudged the dive, and I've gone headfirst into the seabed. The doctor in Portugal just said to me, "You'll never be able to move your arms and legs again." It wasn't until the day I was put into a chair for the first time, and it was the lowest that I've ever felt in my entire life. But then that night I was lying in bed and just thought to myself, no one to blame for what has happened. No point being sad or angry about anything. May as well just get on with it. And then really from that day my mind was just a completely different place. Rather than, look at everything I can't do, I look at everything I can do. Everything I have got. Wake up every morning just feeling very grateful for everything I've got. And it drives me to kind of push myself and try and get the most out of life as I possibly can.
So what an amazing man Henry Fraser is, lying in his hospital bed having been told that he will be paralysed from the neck down and won't ever be able to walk. Again, he thought to himself, well, I can either mope and moan, or I can look to the positives. I can either look at what I can't do, or I can look at what I can do. And he decided to look to the positive and look at what he could do, and he started to paint using his mouth. And the next few pictures that I'm going to show you are some of the paintings that Henry Fraser has done just using a paintbrush that's held in his mouth. So here he is painting a picture of an eagle, and you can see the paintbrush there in his mouth as he's doing that painting. Just move it forward, and there is the actual painting that he did. And there's the painting, Henry here painting a picture. It's called Psychedelic Cow if you wanted to actually Google the image. But there he is painting with his mouth, just holding the paintbrush in his mouth, and there he is painting a picture And there's the finished painting. How amazing is that? And then again, here he is painting a picture of a lion. Again, just holding the paintbrush there in his mouth and painting all that detail of a lion. And there, that image is coloured in later. So just using his mouth, he's painted these fantastic pictures. And we need to think about that. We need to think about our mindset. How positive would we have been in that situation that he found himself in? But he chose not to think of what he can't do, but what he can. And that reminds me of another image that I've seen recently, and that's this one. And it's an image of a soldier, Sergeant Johnny Joey Jones. So he's obviously a man who's been in the army. He's an American, actually. He's been in the American army. But you can see here he's had his legs amputated. He was in war, and he ended up in a situation where he ended up losing his legs. But this is what he says. People ask, how do I stay so positive after losing my legs? But I simply ask, how they stay so negative with theirs. So this is a man who's lost his legs, and people are saying to him, why are you so upbeat? Why are you so positive? How are you so happy you've lost your legs? And he says, well, how can you be so negative? You've still got yours. And it's all about mindset. It's all about thinking to ourselves, what is the good that is happening in the world? Where is the good stuff? And that's a story that I'm going to read you now. Last week I showed you some phrases, and one of those phrases was, every cloud has a silver lining. And I'm going to read you a folk story, really. It's obviously not a true story, the story I'm going to read you, but it's an indication of how we can look to find that silver lining even on a cloudy day. So here's our story. Every cloud has a silver lining. Once upon a time, there was an old woman who lived in a tiny cottage at the end of the lane. She said she was 99 years old, and she said she could make magic spells. She had a wrinkled brown face and twinkling brown eyes. She had white hair, which she wore in 2 long plaits wound around the head. She wore long black dresses with white petticoats, and always a billowing snowy white apron. And she was a very kind old woman, and she always had a cheerful smile and a friendly word for everyone. Well, every morning she walked through the village to the bakery to buy a loaf of bread, and every morning she said a cheery, "Good morning, the sun is shining brightly," to everyone she met. Well, on sunny days, of course, that greeting was all right, but on cloudy, dull, rainy, foggy days, it sounded a little strange, and some people would say, "Oh no, Mistress Black-White, the sun is not shining today." "Oh yes, it is," she would reply. "You might not be able to see it, but up in the sky, above the clouds, the sun is shining brightly. The clouds are just in the way, that's all." Well, one particular winter, everything seemed to go wrong in the village. Everyone seemed to be having bad luck, or experiencing sadness or unhappiness. But each morning, during that dreadful winter, Mistress Black-White walked to the bakery as usual, and each day she said to everyone, "Good morning, the sun is shining brightly." "Silly old woman," some people said. "She doesn't know what she's saying," said the others. "Ignore her, take no notice," said some. "But this bad luck won't last forever," said Mistress Black-White. "Try to look on the bright side of things. Try to be as cheerful as possible. It'll make you feel better. Remember, the sun is always shining above the clouds." But the people wouldn't listen. They would not and could not look on the bright side of things. They felt that they had the right to be miserable and unhappy because things were going wrong. Well, Mistress Black-White watched in dismay as everyone in the village became more and more unhappy, grumpy and disheartened. I must do something to cheer everyone up, thought Mistress Black-White. Soon things will get better, I know they will. So that evening, Mistress Black-White stood at her kitchen stove and stirred a strange silver liquid in a circular silvery saucepan. She stirred and stirred for 7 hours, 7 minutes. Then she poured the silver liquid into a basin and left it to cool. When it was cold, it had set into a solid silvery shape, and Miss Black-White tipped it out onto her chopping board and chopped it into 1,000,000 pieces like silver confetti. Then she put on her coat, and as the cockerel crowed and the first fingers of daylight reached across the sky, she went out and threw the sparkling pieces of silver confetti in a shimmering crescent high into the air. Then she went home. Later that morning, when the people came out of their houses into the cloudy, rainy day, they noticed that every cloud in the sky had a bright, shining silver lining, which caught the sparkling golden rays of the sun shining high above them. "Look," they all said, "the sun is shining above the clouds. Every cloud does have a silver lining. It must mean our luck will soon change and everything will be all right again." And Mistress Black-White just smiled to herself. So like I said, it is just a folk story. It isn't a true story, obviously, but there are certain elements of truth within that story. Certainly the world does keep turning, and day does turn into night, and certainly the sun is still shining every single day, even though it is hidden by the clouds. It's been a very cloudy, snowy weekend, hasn't it, this weekend? But the fact that that daylight is still there, the sun is still shining. And those are the things that we are asking you to do as part of our theme this term at St. Peter's. Think about the positives. Think about the bright side. Let your light shine so brightly that other people look to you and see the positives in the world, and they can see their way out of the dark. So as we start a new week here at St. Peter's, let's ask God to be with us, and let's ask him to help us to always look on the bright side, hands together and eyes closed. Lord Jesus, we ask you to be with us this week and to help us to see the bright side, and to help us to help others to see their way out of the dark. Help us to see the positives. Help us to be like Henry Fraser and look at what we can do rather than what we can't. And help us to be a role model to others so that they can look to us to see the good in the world. Amen. And off we go now into the rest of our week for some amazing learning. And remember, children of St. Peter's, that you must always learn, sparkle and shine. Have a fantastic week, and I will see you around school, or I will see you on the internet and your comments. Don't forget to keep in touch with me through the comments on the Shine Team blog like I showed you at the beginning. Have a fantastic week. Bye now.